Me? Is that working now? Okay. As Julie said, I'll be speaking about the importance of the therapeutic milieu in treating co-occurring disorders today. My name is Jessie Everts, and I'm from Wayside House. I wanted to give a little context, a little information about Wayside House before I start, just so that you can see how this fits with our work there. We are inpatient or residential treatment and outpatient treatment for women and their families with chemical dependency and co-occurring disorders. Wayside House was started in 1954, started as a halfway house, and has more recently become treatment, both inpatient and outpatient. Right now we have a women's treatment center, which is 40 inpatient or residential beds for women, and then outpatient and extended care, recovery maintenance. The stay at our women's treatment center is about 90 days, and our family treatment center, which is in Minneapolis, is smaller. It has 15 beds for women, and then also room for their children to be with them in treatment as well if they're reunifying. The stay there is a little longer, usually 120 days approximately, and then they can also do outpatient or extended care there. The reason that I bring this up is because that's a very long stay. We have a very long program, and so the women are really living at our treatment centers, and that is what makes it so important to have a therapeutic milieu or a therapeutic environment for our treatment, because it's not just a 5-day stay or a hospital type setting. It's really where they live. So that's why we've paid such attention to this at Wayside House. So what do I mean by the therapeutic milieu? Milieu is a French word, and it means place or the mid-place, also meaning kind of the surroundings or the environment. So when we talk about the therapeutic milieu, we're talking about parts of treatment, the treatment environment, that become a part of the treatment or become part of the care and the recovery that we offer for clients. So how the environment supports treatment. This is an old idea. It first came about in the 1940s, talking about inpatient psychiatric care for teenagers or for children. So those wards were talking about how they created a therapeutic milieu because it was encouraging the children or the adolescents who were living in their inpatient psychiatric units to do some developmental tasks that maybe they missed as a part of their illness, or needed to do some healing that was beyond just what treatment was going to offer them. So that's where this originated, and even now this is mostly talked about in kind of inpatient medical or psychiatric settings. Nursing is a field where this is talked about quite a bit because they're concerned about the patient care in an inpatient setting. So when I talk about the therapeutic milieu, also I want to say that we're not just talking about the physical space of a program, of a treatment program like ours. We're talking about the experience that a client has there. So not the physical space is a piece of that, but it's not all of it. I think we're also talking about processes that they go through coming into treatment, the processes they go through, the kind of counseling that they receive, the kind of community that they live in, how they're treated in their day-to-day lives. That's all part of this therapeutic environment that I'm talking about. It's kind of the culture of the therapeutic milieu. So some background research that talks about what makes a milieu therapeutic. It's really talking about a flattened hierarchy, so it's not a top-down kind of care. A therapeutic milieu puts the client in control of their treatments and in control of their actions and reactions, instead of having a really hierarchy that tells them what to do. There are also high levels of communication between staff and clients, really openness about the process, so it's not this secret that we are the experts on what should be done, but that we bring the clients into that, and we're always talking about what they're doing and why. We're talking about individualized and personalized goals, decisions, and relationships. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of treatment that I think had been done in the past. We're really individualizing, personalizing things because that's how our clients are going to have great success and are going to engage in the environment that they're in. And I think the goal of a therapeutic milieu is to show clients how they can have healthier functioning in the real world. So it's not a hospitalized, cold setting. It's really one that is reflective of the real world that they're going to return to after they go to treatment, so that they are learning skills that they can actually use, and they're able to practice those skills in the therapeutic milieu. It's not an isolated treatment center that doesn't have any connections with what they're going to go back to. Clients were asked kind of what their feelings were about the environment that they are in, how that contributes to their treatment, and what they have said is that the milieu can feel like a refuge from self-destructiveness, that it's a place that they come to grow and to be safe and in an environment that's different from where they came from. It allows for the development of identity, finding new balance and having new experiences, connecting and bonding with others, and opening possibilities for the future. So it's really a space where they're free and safe to try things in a different way than they were doing before. And that's really what we see as therapeutic about the milieu, is that it's a place to do something different, a safe spot to make changes. So some factors that have been found to be common to a therapeutic milieu are these: containment, support, structure, involvement, and validation. And we'll talk about what each of these mean and kind of why it's important and ways that it can be incorporated into a therapeutic milieu. Containment, when we're talking about containment, we're talking about providing the basic needs of clients and creating a safe and enclosed environment. So it's not open to outside influences. It's somewhat enclosed so that there's sort of a safe space created. And that's important because it helps to improve symptoms that we see in our clients often. Symptoms like impulsivity, fear, feeling unsafe, anxiety, controlling behaviors, physical deterioration, and being crisis-driven in that mindset. And the ways that we can do this in a therapeutic milieu are to provide things like food and shelter, things that our clients might be preoccupied with in their everyday life. To have those basic needs met allows them to do some of the more therapeutic work that needs to be done rather than focusing on those basic needs. So providing medical care, also emphasizing privacy, confidentiality are ways to provide containment, creating that safety for clients, and also having rules and policies that enforce safety and respect as values for the clients. When we talk about support in a therapeutic milieu, we're talking about efforts to make the clients feel comfortable and secure, improving self-esteem, and decreasing distress, which is the goal of treatment. I think both of those things. And good treatment, I don't think, can take place in an unsupportive environment. So this is really the basis of feeling supported and feeling like clients can make changes and that they're supported in doing those. The ways that we do this are by paying attention to mental health issues and providing support for those, as well as chemical dependency issues. Paying attention to the client and the staff culture, being really deliberate about that rather than just assuming that things will fall into place, making sure that we're paying attention to that and being supportive in all aspects of the culture. Open communication, as I talked about before, and a high level of staff involvement and individualization in client treatment. So the staff aren't behind closed doors, they're out there in the community supporting clients, and that's a feeling that's created rather than just in their individual sessions or in the therapy piece of treatment. It's an environmental kind of support that's provided. And also a piece of support is supporting outside treatments and activities, other things that enhance the treatment that we're providing. Sometimes there can be a message given to clients that this is the treatment that you need to focus on, and I think by encouraging them to incorporate other types of support and that we see that as supporting the treatment that we do, that can be a way of supporting them too. Knowing that we can't meet all of their needs and encouraging them to find ways to do that and to bring that into our treatment, it enhances it. Structure, there are obvious ways that we incorporate structure and then less obvious ways. It's really the predictable and consistent organization of treatment. Giving a framework for living in the real world while limiting dysregulation, promoting responsibility and self-control. We hear about this a lot from clients, that this is an important piece of treatment, is the structure that it provides that was lacking in their lives before they came into treatment. So just having, in the most basic terms, having a schedule and having expectations that they meet each day, that's a piece of structure, but also just knowing what's coming next and knowing what to expect on a daily basis. Not having sort of punishments or surprises. That's especially important for clients who have been through trauma, which we'll talk about a little bit later. That predictability and consistency is really an important piece of feeling safe and feeling able to do the treatment. Ways that we do this in treatment centers in general are privilege and consequence systems, behavior management systems, making sure that clients know the rules and know the consequences of not following rules, and making that as supportive as possible. Possibly using contracts, a way of doing this, having mandatory meetings or schedules, classes that they have to attend, specific time frames for daily activities. These are all ways that treatment centers of lots of different kinds can enforce structure. Involvement are any processes that involve clients in their treatment and then also involve them in the social environment around them. So really building a community is a piece of the therapeutic milieu. And this is important because it strengthens interpersonal skills and abilities and reduces isolation and resistance that is really common among our clients. So it engages them in a community and helps them feel valued as part of a community. And it also empowers them to take control of their treatment and to be involved in that actively. And the ways that we do this are by having client-driven goals, offering family therapy, things like this that engage not just our clients but their support systems, building their support systems, having didactic activities where they learn with and from other clients or other staff members, providing client team building where they're really building that community and those relationships one-on-one and as a community. Having community meetings and activities, and also mentoring can be ways of involving clients, not just in their own treatment, but with the other people who are in their groups, in their treatment with them. And then validation is the last component of the therapeutic milieu, and that's acceptance and affirmation of clients' feelings, strengths, and individualities. And it's so important to the therapeutic milieu because it helps clients to accept themselves in order to make changes necessary to treatment. So having that balance between acceptance and change that we talk about in treatment. Ways that we do this are staff empathy, compassion, tolerance of uncertainty, and sensitivity to client stage of change. So these are, validating that a client may not be ready to do the therapy that they need to do that day, or figuring out ways that we can validate them, help them to get to a place where they can do the treatment. That's another piece of sort of actively engaging them by validating them. So the reason that the therapeutic milieu, the idea of a therapeutic milieu, is so important to co-occurring disorders is because both are holistic approaches. I think that they're a good fit because when we talk about treating co-occurring disorders, we're talking about treating several different aspects of a client's health or levels of health. And that's the same, that a therapeutic milieu kind of provides a supportive context for that work, and it can be a piece of that work. We'll say often we don't know what piece of treatment is going to be successful for each client individually. Sometimes it's connections with their peers. Sometimes it's the actual therapy they receive. Sometimes it's a recovery coach. Sometimes it's just being in the kind of community that they're in while they're in a treatment center or in a therapeutic setting. So the best that we can do, not knowing which of those pieces is going to be really important for that client, is to provide all of them and to provide it within a therapeutic setting or a supportive context so that that they're getting whatever pieces are important for them. So another reason that therapeutic milieu, the idea of that is such a good fit for co-occurring disorders is because it's reflective of a lot of the principles of integrated care that we talk about. Sensitivity to contextual factors such as culture or trauma. Most importantly, that we can't just view the client individually and as they appear in their therapy session. We have to take into consideration where they came from, what the context that they're in currently, and the context that they came from, their culture, their family background, things like that, any traumatic background that they have, how that all contributes to where they're at in the therapeutic environment. So both the therapeutic milieu and kind of integrated care pay attention to those contextual factors. Individualization of treatment is another principle of integrated care that is also supported by the therapeutic milieu. Having, like I said before, not a one-size-fits-all, but a really individualized plan for each client, and being sensitive to their needs and their context. Having a recovery philosophy, and that I believe is a piece of the therapeutic milieu, especially in a treatment center where co-occurring disorders are being treated, that's an idea that's a part of the culture, that we're talking about recovery. It's the language that we use and the values that we show for our clients, and that's a piece that they feel in the treatments that they're receiving. viewing both chemical dependency and mental health as chronic and ongoing issues, so that we're constantly working with where a client is at, and that we realize that that might change. So having a flexible view of what success is and an individualized view of what success is also a piece of validation and support that's part of the therapeutic milieu. And making sure that care is sensitive to client's stage of recovery and stage of change. So again, an integrated care perspective or principle that is supported by having a therapeutic milieu that's really sensitive to those factors and changing treatment to fit those factors. Yes?
Hey, there's a question here from somebody watching the live stream.
Okay.
Do you work with clients who have severe PTSD, and if so, what kind of programming is offered?
Absolutely. We do have several women who have, almost all of our women have been through trauma, and several do have a diagnosis of PTSD. And I'm going to a little bit later in the presentation talk a little bit about trauma-informed care and how we integrate that into our therapeutic milieu, and I think I will address that, but I'll come back to it if I don't. So I want to give some specific examples from Wayside House, because this is something that we've given a lot of thought to, how we create a therapeutic milieu at Wayside House. So just sort of some examples, and then we'll talk about how other types of settings could incorporate the same kinds of principles or other supportive therapeutic pieces of their environment. So really, when we talk about our therapeutic milieu, it goes back to what our core values are, and those are safety, respect, and care. We want our clients to feel safe, to feel respected, to feel cared for while they're in treatment. So we, with that mindset, have talked about how we can make our environment, both the physical environment and the emotional environment, the processes they go through coming into treatment, living in treatment, and going into outpatient treatment, how we can make that reflective of our core values. And that's why we've incorporated a therapeutic milieu, because it fits those values that we have for our clients, and it fits the needs of our clients as well. So based on those values, we have sort of underlying policies that are underneath all of our programming, all of the curriculum that we teach, the classes we have, the ways we manage behavior are really based on some policies that reflect our values, and those are relational cultural theory, trauma-informed care, and integrated mental health and CD services. And we'll talk a little bit about each of those things and why it was selected as part of our therapeutic milieu, why it's such a good fit. Relational cultural theory, first and foremost, is sort of the philosophy that we have in our client care clinically. That's the basis of the counseling that is done at Wayside House. And it's a theory that sees connection as the goal rather than encouraging clients to be autonomous and sort of self-individualized, individuated. We see connection and relationships as the goal for our clients, that we want to have healthy connections. And this is a theory that pays attention to power, gender, client's context, development, strengths, and wellness. And those are all pieces that we really see as important for our clients, especially because they're women and they're often underserved and undervalued women. And so those are all pieces that we really want to make sure that we are attending to for our clients. So those all become part of our culture, that we're paying attention to power dynamics in our treatment centers. We're paying attention to gender and the fact that we're treating women. We're paying attention to the context of our clients and our context. We're paying attention to their development, their strengths, and their wellness, and that's a positive focus, and that's a piece of why our milieu is therapeutic for our clients. So this theory is the basis of our counseling, but also sort of the basis of our treatment centers, that we want even our staff that are there throughout the night to have some ideas about where our clients are coming from and what it means that they're a woman in this treatment center, what their strengths are, that we're focused on that as a whole staff, and that the experience of being in treatment supports that. So in terms of the 5 sort of factors of a therapeutic milieu, I've gone through and talked about some specific ways that we try to achieve those 5 factors. The first, again, was containment and providing the basic needs of clients in a safe and enclosed environment. And we think of ourselves as sort of a closed community with open doors. We're not a locked facility. Our clients are free to leave at any time. But within the walls of our treatment center, we establish a community, and we make our clients feel a part of a community even though they're free to go, it's their choice to become a part of that community, and that's a really important piece. We emphasize client confidentiality. I think that's really important in establishing trust and safety, and that we talk about not only outside of our treatment center, but outside of groups and outside of individual sessions, that client information is kept confidential, and that our clients really rely on that and hold each other accountable to that, because they want to feel safe and they want to be able to do the work that they need to do. And then trauma-informed care, which gets back to the piece about our clients' trauma histories and how that affects them. We try to incorporate trauma-informed care into most of our programming and in our therapeutic milieu. And the rationale for trauma-informed care is that when someone's been through trauma, it becomes sort of a core piece of their identity. And we recognize that a lot of our women have been through trauma, and that really has changed the way they see themselves and the way they see themselves as a part of a community or not a part of a community. And so that's something we have to pay attention to, how it defines them or how they define themselves in terms of their trauma. And so we as a system then also have to see them within their context. So we can't just see them coming in the doors and ignore what's happened to them in the past. That's a piece of them and a piece that we need to be supportive of in their treatment. We hope that our services are strength-based and designed to promote growth and mastery rather than being punishing or something that's going to further traumatize a client who's been through a lot of trauma. We want to focus on the areas that they have strengths and where we can build strengths, rather than punishing areas where they don't have those strengths. And the service relationship in a trauma-informed care system is equal and based on developing trust and safety over time. So again, this fits into our philosophy of we want to have not a top-down or a power-over type of environment, because that is really damaging for someone who's been through trauma and has had power exerted over them, and they already feel traumatized and powerless. We want to be supportive of them healing from that, and so we want to create that equal relationship as much as we can to make them feel like they have power and empowerment in their treatment. So trauma-informed care, again, it fits so nicely with the therapeutic milieu and the ideas that we've talked about before, as well as the integrated care perspectives. It nurtures relationships and communication. It helps build that feeling of safety through consistency, predictability, and validation. We, as staff, model a calm and positive environment, so that's something that we know we need to care for ourselves in order to show our clients how to do that same care for themselves. We offer positive reinforcement that enhances client self-worth, and we individualize care to each client and their own experience, realities, and strengths. So this is underlying all of our programming, and there are ways in which we build this into groups. All of our groups have a piece of curriculum about trauma or some background information about trauma, and we talk about that often. Just that the fact that we understand that we expect that most of our women have been through trauma, and so we have that in our minds as something that we want to be, if at the very best, we want to help them heal from that trauma. At the least, we don't want to make that trauma worse, and that's our how we've built pieces of our culture to be supportive and not re-traumatizing. In terms of support in the therapeutic milieu, that's efforts to make clients feel comfortable and secure, improving self-esteem and decreasing distress. So trauma-informed care is a big piece of that we know that they've been through things that they need help with, and that's our goal, to help them build up a sense of themselves again, decrease distress. So we're focused on their strengths and values and their value in the community. Dialectical behavior skills is a way that we offer support for sort of the emotional health of our clients, and we've made that a piece of our milieu that's therapeutic. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Dialectical behavior skills come from DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, which was developed for clients with borderline personality disorders, but we find it so helpful for clients with chemical dependency and other mental health issues because they're similar in sort of the level of dysregulation and instability in their emotions and their relationships and their self-image and impulsivity. Those are kind of common themes for our clients. for lots of clients with chemical dependency issues or co-occurring disorders. So we find that these skills, which are the DBT skills, are really helpful for our clients as well. And so we've built that into a piece of our curriculum. The core 4 DBT skills are mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. And so we teach this to our clients. We have a group specifically about dialectical behavior skills. We have trained all of our staff in DBT skills at all levels, the counselors to the house staff that are there providing transportation, to our finance committee. All of those staff have this language, and so they know that these are some of the goals that our clients are working on, so they can help them with that in the environment. It's not just that they have to go find their counselor when they're feeling emotionally dysregulated. They have a whole staff that's there to support them in that. We use this language in assignments, in our therapeutic contracts, in our reward system, in our treatment language. It's just part of our culture. It's everywhere. We hear something about DBT skills every single day at our treatment center, and so the clients sort of have that as a background too of, that's something that they feel is really helpful to them in going through treatment because they're really concrete skills that they can use. In terms of providing structure, that predictable and consistent organization of treatment, we offer a lot of programming focused on co-occurring disorders, and a lot of programming in general. And our clients, although they don't like that at first, really get to like that they have expectations all day, just as they would in the real world, that they have things they have to be on time to, and that they are learning things. They have places they need to be, and people who are counting on them to do jobs, to do kind of responsibilities throughout the day. So offering all that programming is really providing them a lot of structure that then they learn how to incorporate into their own lives. And we also use therapeutic contracts, or sort of individualized agreements on things that our clients are struggling with. And so in a helpful, supportive way, we can sort of structure their treatment to be more individualized, so that when they're struggling with something, they have really predictable and positively focused consequences for that, so that we're incorporating that into their treatment and helping them with those things rather than leaving them or discharging them or not paying attention to those issues. Involvement, those processes that involve clients in their treatment and in the social environment around them. The ways that we do this at Wayside House are, again, the relational cultural theory, that's pretty pervasive, that we're encouraging them to have healthy relationships with their peers, with their counselors, with the staff, with their family members, and people in the community that they're going to be going back to when they leave treatment. We offer a lot of family programming and family therapy also, because we realize that we can't just treat the individual. We need to treat their support system, or the place that they're going to go after they leave treatment. We also incorporate mentoring. We have new clients coming in paired with a client who's been there for a while, because it helps build a relationship. It engages that new client right away and helps the client who's been there for a while feel like they have a value, or they have a responsibility to new clients and a responsibility to be part of the community that welcomes new clients. And then we have ongoing connection with our clients even after they finish outpatient care. They are always welcome to come back and be part of that community. If that's a piece that they miss, they're always welcome to come to Wayside and just hang out, or just see their counselor on an informal basis, because we see that their need doesn't end when they leave outpatient treatment, and we want to be a supportive environment for them even when they're not living in our facilities. Validation, I think, is one of our key aspects of the therapeutic milieu, and that's acceptance and affirmation of clients' feelings, strengths, and individuality. Again, we're integrating mental health care, so we're really paying attention to their emotional health in the course of their treatment. And this is where I think the staff work and the staff values are so important, that we encourage our staff to be able to offer validation to their clients on all those different levels. So we offer supervision that's going to enhance our therapeutic milieu, staff team building, so that the staff is taking care of themselves and building those relationships and are able to help the clients do that as well. And then ongoing trainings for our staff. And I think that's a really important part of our therapeutic milieu, that we incorporate co-occurring disorder training and training on women's issues, training on cultural sensitivity, motivational interviewing, DBT, relational cultural theory, training on trauma, so that our counselors and our clinical staff all feel like they're on the same page, or they have the same information, they have the philosophy of Wayside sort of as a part of their training and at their fingertips to help the clients every day. And then another piece of our validation in our therapeutic milieu is our behavior management program, which is called RIPPLE, or Rewards in a Positive Living Environment. And that's a positive reinforcement behavior management system developed by House in Milwaukee, who we have a partnership with and have gone to some trainings about and continue to be in contact with about our RIPPLE program, their RIPPLE program, and how they're developing. So we have this at all of our treatment centers, and it's focused on teaching skills and recognizing client strengths and successes rather than punishment or shaming. So whereas, discharging clients or having harsh consequences for not following rules was sort of the old method of treatment that was not creating a supportive or validating environment for our clients, we realized we wanted to pay more attention to the positives and help when there are negatives, help when there are failures to understand the rules or difficulty with the rules and responsibilities. So instead of putting somebody on a contract and possibly kicking them out when they've broken a rule, we are giving them a positive reinforcement in the form of tokens or things that are tangible rewards when they do something positive, like following the rules that they're expected to follow. And when they don't, we really think about how they are maybe not able to follow that rule because they don't have the skills that we have, are missing a piece of that development, and so we can help with that and build that skill instead of punishing them for not having that skill. So we have the staff mindset of that they can't sometimes follow the rules, not that they won't, which helps us to not see that as client resistance, but to help see that as a client deficit that we need to help with. So we're really focused on building skills, teaching skills, helping our clients to follow the rules and the responsibilities, and that reduces sort of this heavy focus on punishment and focus on where their deficits are. So in terms of ways that other treatment centers and other kinds of settings can implement a therapeutic milieu, I think this is not applicable just to residential care, but to outpatient clinics, to even private practices. You have an environment, whether it's a place where clients live or not, there's an experience that they're having when they're coming to you for care. And I think thinking about it as a therapeutic milieu can be really helpful in terms of being really deliberate about where your clients are and how you're helping them, even when you're not in therapy with them. So I really encourage people to walk through your environment or the experience that clients have when they come to your facility as a client, in the mindset of a client, to see what that feels like and what that seems like to them. So just have that experience. We have each year a change team person who goes through a training, and that's one of the assignments that they're asked to do, is to go through the intake process as a client, from the phone call and the phone interview to admission, and to really see what that's like. And every year we have a staff person do that, and every year we make changes to that process because we notice things that we didn't notice before, that they feel rushed when they come in the door, or that the interview questions aren't asked in a supportive, safe way, that they felt like they could tell the truth. So we're constantly sort of reminding ourselves what it's like to be a client in our facility, and that we can change pieces of that and make them better. If you're not able to do that, I think asking clients for feedback is another great way to see how you can make your milieu therapeutic. Asking about sort of what feels good, what feels not so great about the experience of coming to your facility for therapy or for treatment, and being really aware of your space and the culture in your environment, the physical space, the social and emotional environment, and thinking about your specific client population. Ours is women, and so we are very aware that we are providing a service specifically for women, and their needs are different from another facility. So we have to be really conscious of how we're providing services for our women. So thinking about your client population, the experience of coming to your center or your facility and receiving services, there are things that you can change about that, and there are things that you can't. And I think, when you notice that there are things you can change, working to change those, working to change, the way that you handle behaviors, the curriculum that you teach, or the services that you provide, those are all changes you can make. And I think the best you can do for the things that you can't change is to talk about them with clients, to be really open about those. We have a treatment facility that's in a location that's really hard for some clients. It's in a difficult neighborhood in Minneapolis where a lot of use happens. And so we are aware we can't change our location, but we can talk about that with clients, and it becomes part of the treatment to say, we're in a really rough neighborhood. This is a place where you used to use. We can't change that. How can we help you with that piece of this treatment? That we're going to be triggered every time you walk out of our doors, or every time you go to the bus stop. So that's not something we can change about our environment, but we can talk about it and make it a therapeutic use of that environment, something that we can't change. So I think I tried to sort of conceptualize this visually. I really think that it starts with the staff values and the client needs, and thinking about that, what your client needs are, your specific population. For us, again, because we have women and women who have been through trauma, we know that that's a need that needs to be addressed in our environment. And then we know that our values, safety, respect, and care, that we want those to be present and really a part of our treatment. And so reflecting on those two things, and then creating from that things that you want to enhance in your staff, and policies that you want to make sure reflect what you want them to reflect. And I think these are examples of policies that I think most treatment facilities, both inpatient, outpatient, have. We have a behavior management system because we have clients living in our community, but even in a private practice or an outpatient facility, you have ways of dealing with behaviors. Do you kick someone out of group if they've used chemicals? What's the way that you deal with those sort of behaviors in that kind of setting? So thinking about how a policy just like that is supporting the therapeutic milieu that you want or not. Having a harsh behavior management system wouldn't work for our milieu, because we want to be supportive of our clients who have been through trauma, and we want to deal with behaviors in a different way. Thinking about the education and curriculum that is offered, what things you talk about, how you educate your clients, both in an individual therapy session and as an agency as a whole. We have lots of different curricula that we use, and we want to make sure that each of them supports the values that we have and the needs that our clients have. Thinking about interventions and strategies, the actual therapeutic work that takes place, sort of what the theory is behind that, and what strategies you use, and how that reflects on what your clients need and what your values are. And maybe most importantly, communication and relationships. How staff interact with clients, both, even in an outpatient clinic. I think that that's so important, from that front desk person to the counselors, sort of how you want your staff to interact with your clients. Talking about that and making it a really conscious piece of the treatment can be really important, and how you encourage clients to have relationships with each other, with their family members, how that becomes a part of the treatment. And a piece, I think, too, is staff development, and making sure that the staff are on the same page about what kind of environment you're providing, or what the culture is in your environment. And that probably requires some training, or some kind of continuous reinforcement of what the core values of the agency are. So again, kind of the process that I think Wayside has gone through, and that other treatment facilities and other agencies in general can go through, is first identifying the needs of your population, then identifying your agency's core values and making policies that reflect your values relative to your client needs. And then most importantly, I think, getting the staff on board, or hiring staff who enhance and understand that culture, that you're kind of, that's the piece that you can't change once it's in place. So you want to make sure that the staff really understand how they interact with the clients, how they interact with each other, is all part of that therapeutic milieu. So really continuous training and reminders about what you want your clients' experience to be in the facility that you have. All right. I have time for questions if there are any. All right.
Oh, sure. So, you were talking about the importance of having supportive environment, and then also having expectations because they are living within a community, so that there are rules that are there.
Yep.
And that can be an interesting mix and balance. Oh, okay. So, and I know that you talked a little bit about ripples, so that I think was the piece that I was trying to put in for the support and expectations. But could you give an example of kind of the old way and versus the new way?
Sure. Sure. So the question was, how do we sort of blend support and the expectations of the rules that we know that clients have to live by? And we really, when we did a recent change from kind of an old contract or consequence system of behavior management to this ripple positive system of behavior management. So we have gone through this process really recently. And what we started to think about was, did the list of rules that we have reflect our values? We had a manual of about 250 rules for clients that were things that kind of were arbitrary or things that came up once and we made a rule about it. And we really wanted to make sure that we had rules that were meaningful and that reflected our values. So we have next to each rule now in our handbook, and there are probably only 50 rules now as opposed to 250, that we have what the value is behind that rule listed right next to it in the handbook. So, we have a rule about chemical use on our property. That's a rule, and that's a safety issue and a respect issue for clients in the program, that we want to create that safe environment and not have that be a piece of it. So whereas in the past, under the old system of consequences, if someone had chemicals on the property, that would be probably immediate discharge or a really harsh consequence or punishment. We, first of all, have that rule very clear, and so they understand that that's an expectation, and they know that what the consequence will be. We have really a positive focus then on how that would be handled. So, instead of immediate discharge, we would talk about what are the client needs that are reflected here. It may need to be a discharge. It may be that we need to help them with, understanding what the consequences of having a chemical on the property, what the consequences are for their peers, for their treatment, their recovery, and have them do some assignments or something that is going to actually help them understand that more than just an immediate discharge, which doesn't help them at all. It doesn't build any skills. It's an end to the problem that doesn't do any skill building. So we wanted to really change that focus and make sure we could use that as an opportunity to help our clients rather than just end our relationship with them harshly.
Well, and then building on that, how long have you been working with this really sort of systemic environmental change at Wayside House? Has it been a while, or is it fairly recent? Because I have a question that's going to connect with that.
Are you talking about the therapeutic milieu, the idea of that in general? That has, I think, been a piece of Wayside House for a long time, and I think since the beginning, I think that's been a component of Wayside House, and specifically I think because we serve women, and that was from the start. We knew that we had specific needs that we needed to address with that population, and special components of therapy that we knew were going to be important, and components of the environment that were going to be important. And more recently, as we've sort of added different kinds of services like the dialectical behavior skills group, things like that, we are becoming aware of it again, because we want to make sure that anything that we add to our services is supporting this idea that we're providing a therapeutic milieu, and does it fit with what we want our clients to experience. So now that's become kind of the filter that we use when we're choosing new strategies for our clients or new pieces of the treatment.
Okay, so it sounds like you're continuing to be really intentional about it and very reflective on practices. And I was intrigued by, I thought of the secret shopper when you said that somebody comes in and goes through the process. Is that something you know about in advance, or is it someone that just comes in and then you find out?
I think that it's a secret to our staff. When it's going to happen. They know that this is a piece that we do every year, and they usually know who the staff person is going to be that's doing this. It's the person that is leading our change team for that year, and that's kind of the first experience that they have as that change team leader, is to think about what changes might be necessary to our environment. That's how they've sort of set the goals for the year then for the change team. So the staff knows that that's going to happen, but they're not aware when, or so that a staff person does really show up in the admit room and with the staff and say, do this as normal, do this exactly the way that we would do it with a client, and I would just want to see what the process feels like. So, yeah.
Well, I don't want to dominate here, but the follow-up to all of this is, have you noticed, or what have you noticed in terms of a shift in client response and engagement, and even staff response and engagement over time as you become more intentional with the therapeutic milieu?
We definitely know that this makes a difference for clients. We do exit interviews when clients leave our program, and ask really what was helpful, what was maybe not helpful about the program, to get that feedback as they're leaving, as they've gone through the experience, and we incorporate that as well. But what is always mentioned is, as helpful, are pieces of that therapeutic environment. And sometimes, I would say more than anything else, they're talking about the community as a whole is what was most helpful to them in their treatment. So not the lectures, not the groups that were provided, but living in that environment is mostly what clients list as sort of the most helpful piece of the treatment. So that's why we know we can't ignore that. I mean, it's a piece of the treatment that we need to be able to use and to craft in a way that is going to be helpful. And I think that that's something that the staff really value too, that it feels like a good workplace as well, because we're paying attention to not just our client needs but our staff needs as well, and that's offering supervision, team building, and things like that that are really paying attention to the wellness of our staff as a whole feels good and feels like it's something that we can reflect to the clients then too. Thank you.
I want to ask about the mentoring that you mentioned. Is that a formal process? Do you provide training to people as they become mentors, or how does that work? Can you flesh that out a little bit more?
Sure. We call them big sisters. That the clients who are a little more senior in the program have been there a while. They're the big sisters to the clients coming in, and first of all, we ask clients if they would like to be those big sisters, if they feel like they're ready, and we also take some staff kind of suggestions on clients that they feel like are ready to do that. It's not just about length of time, it's about sort of where they're at in their program, and if they're doing good work and are feeling like a part of the community, or sometimes it's clients that aren't feeling like a part of the community and we want to really engage them. So it's giving them a responsibility and having them really value that, or that the staff value them in order to suggest that they do that. So when they are asked to or volunteer to become a big sister, we do some training, and they then of course have also been big sistered when they came in, so they know what that process is like a little bit. And then we have staff sort of checking with both the big sisters who have been there a while and the new clients to see how that relationship is going, and if it's being helpful and ways they can sort of continue to improve it. And that formally only lasts maybe a week or two as the new clients come in, but we see that informally, following them probably the whole time that they're in treatment, that they have sort of that connection to whoever was their big sister and to the clients that they came in with, that there's sort of a community or cohort within the community. Yeah.
I guess on the other end, when people leave, I mean, it's a great environment. I imagine you have women who would never want to leave the place because they're better than the environment they've been in. People can come back. Do they do that frequently? How do you help recreate and keep that kind of safe environment going for people after they leave?
Sure, that's a great question. First of all, our outpatient program is pretty lengthy. I mean, if someone went through the whole, say it's a 90-day stay and then possibly up to 6 months or so of outpatient or aftercare, they've been with us maybe a year, sometimes when they have finished their formal programming. So it really does sort of feel like a home to them, or a place that they kind of continue to come to, even if it's once a week. And we emphasize that when they're leaving, that they can always come back. We also have what's called the 41st bed in our women's treatment center. We have technically 40 beds for women. We also have kind of an extra bed, and that's for clients who have maybe graduated the program or are not residential anymore, but need to come back because they're in an unsafe environment. Something is happening that's really going to be a difficult situation for them, and they need a safe place to stay. So we have a process that they can formally come back and spend the night, a few nights if they need to re-engage or to be around that community if they are out in the environment and it's not working out well. So that's kind of one way we definitely encourage them to use the services even when they're not living there. But we will have clients who have not been to formal programming for years, who just come and hang out for an afternoon, or want to see what the new clients are like, or have lunch with them for the day. And we also, our last section of aftercare, which is our recovery maintenance program, it's sort of the step down after they're not doing individual sessions anymore, but they're doing a group a week of recovery maintenance, and they can do that as long as they want. They could do that forever if they wanted to. We don't, after a certain period of time, we don't bill for that anymore, but they're welcome to that group anytime, even if they've been gone for a week or a year, or they can sort of re-engage with some programming too if they really want to. So that's another way that we create kind of ongoing care. Thanks.
For a listening audience who might be interested in learning, for our audience who's listening in, could you maybe, if they're interested in accessing Ripple or finding out more about that, mention a resource or how they can do that?
Sure. There are some resources on the Wayside House website, which is waysidehouse.org. And again, the place where the Ripple program specifically came from is called Meta House, and I know that they have a website as well, and they are a co-occurring treatment in Milwaukee. But again, I think either of those places would be good resources. And we have, I believe, even some training links on our website about Ripple and some of those things. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
We got a few more minutes. One more question.
Sure.
About 5 minutes. About creating a safe environment, validating and allowing people to be at the stage they're at and so on has to be blended with moving people forward, challenging them to grow and learn new skills and all that stuff. How do you artfully blend that so you're creating a safety and validation but also keeping people moving forward?
That, I think, is always a struggle in treatment of any kind, but I think something that we're always talking about as a staff, too, is not measuring everyone on the same metric, that we know we can't just say a client has to get to this point before they're ready to leave. We need to really individualize that and say that progress for one client might be from a 0 to a 5, and progress for another client might be a 0 to a 0.5, and that's still progress. So making sure that we're not making decisions like stepping down care based on sort of a one-size-fits-all. We're always talking about kind of where we want that client to get to. And really individualizing sort of the assignments or the things that they're doing while they're in treatment too, so we're not giving a timeline that they really have to follow when they first get there. We're really sort of assessing where they're at and where we think they can get to in their first 30 days, in their 60 days or 90 days, and also not being really prescriptive about that and saying every client has to stay 90 days. We really sort of think about that too, in terms of some clients will do a lot of work, are really motivated when they come in, and may be okay to go at 30 days, and some clients, when their 90 days comes, may not be at a place we think they're ready to go yet. And so we really also talk about that in terms of how we step down care at different rates and for different clients. And also, I think how we motivate clients to move into change is another piece of the treatment. We're always talking about kind of where they're at, their own motivation or their stage of change, and how we can keep them moving. It's just a constant piece of their treatment to assess that and to build that in. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of today. Thank you.